Good morning, my beautiful friends. This is your wake up call with Maui Paul. I am Maui Paul. We are here today to say some nice things about ourselves. It is good to come together and see you guys today. We're going to be working with my I am cards. These cards are full of positive affirmations and to really help us to speak life into ourselves. So, good morning. I see Lauren is here. Brenda Jean, good morning. Frank and Grant, Kelly and Dennis, Jin and Tonic probably, and Amanda and Dan, Janet. It is wonderful to see you guys here. It's like a whole group of my awesome friends has just shown up. Jelly is here as well. Good morning. All of my super cool friends have just shown up. We're gonna have some fun today. We are going to say some good stuff about us, and as we do that, we are going to just continue to really take control over our own internal monologue. I had somebody come up to me yesterday and they were talking about how, as a result of watching this show, that they're like, I used to hear all kinds of terrible things about myself inside of my own head, and now I don't. And I was like, perfect. That's the goal. I'm really grateful about that because I also used to hear awful things about myself in my own head. I used to be really discouraging of my own goals, my own dreams, of everything that I am in my head, and I really I don't experience that anymore. And so my goal is that the people around me don't experience that either, because it is an empowered place to be when I think something and then I think I can do that, as opposed to I can't do that. So let's have some fun. Let's pull an I am card. I'm going to ask you if you are the affirmation on the card, and what I'd like for you to do is to say out loud, I am that affirmation. As we do this, we are reprogramming ourselves, just the same way that a computer needs to be reprogrammed. We too were given all kinds of programming at birth and have all kinds of unexamined belief systems. And so we're going to examine some of those today. So without further ado, let's go and say that I am eternal. I am eternal. My consciousness transcends space and time. So I am eternal. My consciousness transcends space and time. Are you eternal? You are eternal. Your consciousness transcends space and time. And I'm going to write that down in the comments. I'm going to say I am eternal. My consciousness transcends space and time. It's funny that this one came up today because I was sitting in the hot tub yesterday, and a friend of mine actually, he said, he said, hey, you just mentioned something on one of your calls, and he brought that belief. He says, is that your belief? I said, yeah, that's probably one of the closest things to, or one of my core spiritual beliefs is that I was somewhere before I came here, and I will go somewhere else after I am done here. And that the perception that I have, my perception of space and time as it exists on this plane of understanding, that perception will continue. Everybody is wondering what happens after they die. And I think that it's not the right question to be asking, because I believe that the flesh that we have exists for a certain period of time. It exists on this plane of understanding where we all share this shared consciousness that we all have. I'm not the only person that's conscious, and I'm not the only person that's conscious. You're not the only person that's conscious. I love how Brenda Jean is not a fan of this one because it is too woo-woo. Where's her agency in the card? Well, let's talk about that. There's a lot of, there is a great body of scientific evidence that suggests that that we are perceptual beings inherently. So it's a fancy way of saying that rather than being like separate from the world around us, that we perceive the world around us in a way that is fitting for our own evolutionary survival. And so there is a great body of scientific evidence from from multiple different disciplines, everything from evolutionary biology to quantum physics, which points to the fact that the stuff around us, the physical objects around us, are not actually real. that they are something that we perceive. And so that this is a thing, this pen is a thing, and that I can interact with this pen, but that this pen is not necessarily what I perceive it to be or what you perceive it to be. So there's just a tremendous amount of there's a tremendous amount of scientific knowledge that is moving toward, or that is moving toward the belief, or the evidence that the world around us, the physical world, is not a real thing. In fact, the belief that the physical world is a real thing is an incredibly recent phenomenon. So for most of recorded human history, there was no such thing as matter. So matter is something that was invented by scientists in order to separate the study of these physical objects. There's like this pen that I keep picking up, to differentiate this from spiritual stuff. And the reason that it was created that way was because as the scientific method was invented, the scientific method started to run contrary to church doctrine. So most of the world was at one point or another completely run by religious organizations who had tremendous power. And so when the scientific method came along and people started to analytically question everything, we started to get ideas that were counter to what church leaders had been saying. And since church leaders were at the time the sole arbiters of truth, that it was right because the Pope said it was right, and it was right because your priest said it was right, and you're not allowed to question it. Scientists were very much, they did not fit into that worldview. So, like, for example, when scientists started to say that the Earth revolves around the sun rather than the sun revolving around the Earth, that was something that was heresy. You get burned at the stake for that. So in the beginning of the Renaissance, kind of like at the beginning of the Age of Enlightenment, scientists came up with this concept called matter, and they said matter is something that can be quantified, which is to say that it can be, we can quantify this pen. We can reduce every aspect of this pen down to a number. The length is a number. The weight is a number. The number of molecules on it is a number. This little thing that says ISU on the side of the pen, this is the color blue that I perceive can be expressed as a number. And because it can be expressed as a number, we can do math and basically learn all that there is about it and its relationship with everything else because of those numbers. And that's where physics comes in. That's how that physics is nothing more than reducing the world around us to a mathematical equation so that we can understand it. And so when I talk about being eternal, what I mean is that the consciousness that we have, not necessarily the perception that we have, because our perceptions always go away. My perception goes away every single night when I go to sleep. And my perception goes away. I close my eyes and I rest, and I'm not afraid that I'm going to lose myself in sleep. I go to sleep with faith that I'm going to wake up and that my consciousness will still be in this same body, that that I'll wake up in the same place, that my sight will work the same after I get up. So this is a spiritual card, but at the same time, it has direct practical implications. And so what can we do? Brenda Jean's asking about how, where's her agency in this? And the agency that we have is the agency to live as if the things that we do in this life have meaning. Because if we are not eternal, if we are an evolutionary accident, if the consciousness that we share, which is such a miracle that we even share such consciousness, if the consciousness that we share is an ephemeral and passing thing, we are going to live our lives differently than if we believe that there is an eternal nature to our consciousness. And so I believe that my consciousness transcends space and time. And because I believe that my consciousness transcends space and time, I look at the transcendent things that exist in this plane of understanding. And then I really, I do something in the in this present moment in order to really build into that. So what I've discovered, or what I'm not the first person to discover it, but what I have chosen to believe is that the love that I give to other people are the love that I share with other people, because we can't just give other people love. We share it; they have to receive it too. But the love that I share with other people is an eternal thing, because I believe that I live in an inherently um, an inherently uh, benevolent universe, as opposed to an inherently hostile one. The great scientist Albert Einstein once said that that's the primary question that we must all answer for ourselves. Is that we have to ask ourselves and then answer the question: do we live in a benevolent universe or a hostile one? And if we live in a hostile universe, or if we believe that we live in a hostile universe, which is the very the foundation of evolutionary biology, is that the universe is inherently hostile and everything's trying to kill us, and so we need to survive. But if we believe that, then we are going to live our lives differently than if we believe that we live in a benevolent universe. Cooperation lives in a benevolent universe, and so yeah, cooperation lives in a benevolent universe, and so as we do go through life, then we do well to understand that there is a part of us that is going to transcend after the flesh is away, and so that there and I call that conscious awareness. And so yes, this card is a very spiritual card, and Brenda Jean says it's a woo woo card, and I think woo woo spirituality. Well, I think that just encompasses everything. That encompasses everything that mainstream religiosity does not encompass. Basically, we have all these different stories, all these different religious stories about where we were, where we're going, etc. And they're different depending on where we were born in the world. These things are they're all very they're different. All of us have a different tradition, and all of us have a different interpretation of whatever tradition we were given. But I believe that if we unpack it all, every single one of us is conscious. Every single one of us answers to the words "I am." We all do. And since we all answer to the word "I am," we have to understand that we are more alike than we are different. And since we all share consciousness, and we know that we do because we are living together in this world, then we can believe that the consciousness that we share either ends when we die, or we can believe that it doesn't end when we die. And if we believe that it ends when we die, we're going to live life differently. And I choose to believe that I am eternal, and that my consciousness transcends space and time. And because I choose to believe that, because I choose to adopt that belief instead of the belief that I am ephemeral and passing, and that this life is all I got, because I don't choose that belief, I live my life differently. And that's where the agency comes. Brenda Jean says, my take from this is I transcend, period. I continually transcend mental, physical, and emotional limits. I could completely agree with that. I think that we're always transcending our limits, and that our limits are, by and large, limits that we put on ourselves because of stories that we were told when we were young that we have not yet re-examined. So yeah, I like that take that we transcend. Now, I know that this card is a very large one. I mean, I could probably talk about this stuff for hours and hours and hours. Not that anybody would probably want to listen to me, but yeah. So I have not actually read a lot of these comments. I'd love to see what you guys have to say. Let's see. Yeah, so Jin says, my opinion, our bodies are made of energy, and to the earth we will return. Our energy is eternal. Yeah, I mean, physics says that. Physics says that energy cannot be created or destroyed. So I believe the same thing. I believe that that there is a point of energy that basically encompasses my perceptual awareness, and that will eventually return to the earth, that my eyes and ears and nose and mouth will one day no longer function because they won't exist anymore, but that the spirit which animates them, the animus, as the Greeks put it, that the animus transcends, the animus continues to exist. Robert says, physicists would like this if we are that we are stored energy. The energy is neither created nor destroyed, just transformed in properties. And that goes back to the scientific method, to the fact that at some point in the early Enlightenment, people took the scientific method and said, we can measure the properties of an object and how they interact with each other, and by measuring those properties, we are able to have a greater understanding of our world. How could we visit different planets unless we understood how planets move in relation to each other? How can we cross oceans unless we understood the principles of that? You make a boat out of wood, and then the wood floats on top of the water. So there are direct practical applications to this, and there are direct practical applications to quantifying our world. Janet says, science to me is the brain trying to catch up with, describe, log, and possibly predict the things that are already happening, regardless of that measurable science. I'm aware that many things are happening in wonderful ways, even if science hasn't figured out how to measure it. Yeah, exactly. So science is the creation of a theorem. The scientific method doesn't claim to be true. It claims to be closer to truth than what we used to believe. So, for example, scientists at the early part of science had this belief that in called spontaneous generation. So, for example, everything that is kind of pops into where it belongs. That was the belief. So, for example, trees give birth to birds. That was a belief. Well, eventually, some people did some observation on that, and they observed trees that didn't have birds in them, and they noticed that the birds were not birthed by the trees. And so then they changed their scientific consensus, and with better information as it came. Just because we haven't yet understood how to describe it doesn't make it false. It just means that we haven't yet been able to quantify it, because this world is big, and literally everything, the closer we look at it, the more complicated it gets. Let's see. Grant, you can't see Janet's comments. That's because what you're looking at on my live stream is a comment aggregator. This broadcast goes out in quite a few different places, and so Janet might be commenting in a different spot from you. One thing that I would like to do eventually with this show is actually start putting it on a live stream platform where everybody can go log into the live stream platform, and all of your comments, you guys can all chat with each other native to the live stream. So I'm working on that. But for now, that's why you can't see them, is she's probably watching this on a different platform than you are. Jin says, E plus R equals O. Events plus response equals outcome. I love that. If something happens, then we decide what it means, and then we decide how we're going to feel about it, and then we react to it, and then something else happens. Let's see here. Yeah. So this conversation sparked a lot of dialogue. Thank you guys so much for just being a part of it with me. Yeah. Jan says, transitions are wonky. Be kind to yourself. Eat the good food. Drink the good drink. Breathe the good breath. Rest the good rest. Laugh the good laugh. I am and you are loved. I am, you are worthy. Love all. Yeah. So Brendan Jean says, hold on. Oftentimes we don't decide how to react to something. The reaction just happens. Yeah, I absolutely, Brendan Jean. I misspoke. So what I meant to say was that something happens, and then we decide what it means. We don't necessarily decide how we're going to react. How we're going to react stems from our decision about what it means. And the decision about what it means is oftentimes a subconscious one. It happens really, really, really quick. And it happens. So we have lots of mental shortcuts inside of our brains, and those mental shortcuts help us to understand what something means. And then later on, after we've had time to think about it, oftentimes we think to ourselves, maybe my reaction would have been different if I had a different idea of what it means. And then we get to excuse me, my mouth is getting dry. I've been at this for 20 minutes. Time to drink. Anyway, yeah. So essentially, just like what Amanda says, we are meaning-making machines, but the meaning that we make is oftentimes a spot judgment, and it's based on all of our preconceptions and all the life that we've had and all of the inputs that we've had in our lives over the course of our lives. And so you're right, Brenna Jean. We don't choose how we don't decide how we react. we decide what something means, which is off, but we don't often understand the we don't understand how that decision came about until much later. A lot of times I'll react to something, and then I'll respond to something, and then later on be like, why on earth did I respond that way? And as I start digging into it, I'm like, oh, ancient childhood trauma. Huh, unearth that. Interesting. Boy, I've been carrying that around for a long time. Maybe it's time for me to, to do something different. Anyways, we've been going at this for like 21 minutes. I love you guys. Thank you so much for being here and for talking about and debating and helping me to clarify my understanding of this card. Eternity is a big thing, and to say that we could adequately discuss it on a 20-minute wake-up call would be silly. But we can discuss a little bit of it, and I guess the biggest thing that I think that we can all take away from this is that let's love the people around us, because we are going to be, because the people around us are more like us than they are different than us. And so they are going through the same kinds of struggles that we are. And when we recognize that, we can have empathy for them, and we can have empathy for ourselves, because I believe that our consciousness truly does continue to persist long after our physical bodies have gone away. I'll leave you guys with this. A friend of mine was just in the hospital for a serious injury, and they put him on some good drugs. And one of the things he had this experience. He said, I had this experience that I couldn't perceive anything. I couldn't see anything. I couldn't feel anything, but I recognized that I still existed. And he's like, and I just felt like I was falling into this this feeling of just pure love. And he's like, I really wish that I could go back there, but eventually I feel like I got that I got downloaded back into my human body, and my perceptions came back. And so that's something that I was thinking about as I was preparing for this card this morning. Anyways, I will talk to you guys later. Thank you so much for being here. I will return tomorrow at 9 a.m. with another card that I sincerely hope gets this much interest from from you guys. So thank you for being here. I love you. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Aloha from paradise.